Hey there, running friends, and welcome to the Wrinkled Runner podcast. I'm known as the Wrinkled Runner. My name is Sherry, and I'm a 50-something from Buffalo, New York, and I've been running for almost 15 years now. First to lose weight, and now because I just love it. I've run 3 marathons, supposed to be 4, thanks COVID, and 6 half marathons. I received my running coach certification through the RRCA mainly so that I felt confident writing my own training plans, and I wanted to learn more about working with other runners since I write about the sport over at wrinkledrunner.com, which is my blog. For the podcast, I'll have show notes available for each episode and links to anything that I talk about. For example, you'll find a link to the RRCA website in the notes, and I might not directly say a link will be available, but if there is something I talk about, you'll most likely be able to find it down there. If not, just shoot me a message and I can provide you with more detail. Many of the ideas for the blog posts and YouTube videos and now podcasts come from the questions I get from runners like you. So please, if there's anything you would like to know more about running, just ask. It helps me immensely and hopefully will help you too. My plan for the podcast is to divide it into seasons to keep things organized. The first few episodes of this season will focus more on running basics, especially since we are entering the new year and many people take up running. If you're new to the sport, I'm hoping you stick with it, and I hope I can help you do that. I especially love working with older women who are just starting out. So to begin, I will be sharing mostly on my own. I may have others join me from time to time, and I may conduct some interviews in the future, and I'm really interested in talking to regular runners. I think it's important for those of us who aren't elite to encourage each other. So if you'd be interested in talking to me for a future podcast, just send me a message and a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your running. I'd be interested in hearing from you. It also helps me develop topics for not just the podcast, but for the Wrinkled Runner website and my YouTube channel as well. So a little about me. My husband Dave and I have 5 children. Their ages range from 23 to 31 here in 2020. We have 4 grandchildren and 5 granddogs, 1 grand cat, and 2 grand guinea pigs. And like I said before, I've been running for almost 15 years now. I remember the circumstances that got me started very well. I was reading a magazine back in the day when a lot of magazines were always pushing women to lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. And they had split up each decade of a woman's life and shared what we should look for in our bodies to go wrong. And so since I was 6 months from turning 40, I checked out what I had to look forward to. And the title of the 40s decade was Welcome to Back Fat, exclamation point included. So I got a mirror and took a look, and there it was. And I hadn't seen my back in a long time, and I was kind of shocked at how much was rolling over my bra strap. Sometimes you see the front of you day after day after day, and you don't notice the little things that are changing. And then if you turn around, that's what I saw, was something that I hadn't looked at in a long time. So I decided then and there that I was going to lose some weight, and I was going to start that day. And so I looked up some diets on the internet, decided I was going to start exercising. And in my research for exercise, I learned that running burns a lot of calories. So that's what I decided to do, just because I wanted to burn calories in the quickest way possible. And so I took my Reebok walking sneakers and my non-athletic shorts and a regular t-shirt and went to the nearest park, and I just started running, maybe a quarter of a mile, and then I had to stop and walk. And that's where I started run walking before I even knew that that was a thing. As time went on, of course, I started learning more about running and that people did things like 5Ks and half marathons. You have to know, before this period of my life, I barely ventured outside, much less do anything like running. So I didn't even know how far a 5K or a 10K or a half marathon was. Eventually, I stumbled on a half marathon being held in Grand Island, New York. It was about a year and a half later. My husband and I decided to sign up way before I would recommend anyone do that now. But we knew nothing about running and training and building up or anything like that. And we found Hal Higdon's novice half marathon training on the internet and decided to go for it. From there, we've never stopped running, and it's always been a part of my life since I was 39. I can't say I always loved it, though, until we moved to Shanghai, China for about a year and a half. We had lived in Japan for a few years before that, and our youngest son was with us in Japan since he was still in high school. And so I was involved in the international school situation in Yokohama, Japan, and so got to know a lot of other women and made a lifelong friend there. And I had a lot of other things to do besides running. But in Shanghai, it was hard to break into the expat world since I didn't have ties to a school or really anything else that I was going to be able to meet other people. And I'm not really one that's just going to, walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, how you doing? My name's Sherry." So I had a lot of time that I was spending by myself. And my husband travels for work. Even when we were living in Shanghai, he still had to travel out of the country. So I just ran and I learned a lot about Shanghai and a lot about where things were by running from place to place and doing different routes. And that's something I still love to do now, is just run someplace new and learn more about it. And then I had the crazy idea, the year I was going to turn 50, that I should run my first marathon. So the process of training for that is really what made me love running so much. And I learned that it's really good for my mental health as well. And it's what's kept me sane during the lockdowns for COVID during this past year. And a few years ago, when I started training for the marathon, I started the Wrinkled Runner website to chronicle my marathon training. But then it evolved into doing more and more research into running, and I ended up sharing a lot of what I was learning instead of it being more of a personal record of my own running. The YouTube channel grew from that, and now here we are. So that's a bit about me and my introduction to this podcast, and I'll be sharing more as we get going. Next week's podcast will be about choosing a running shoe. I remember going to a dedicated running store for the first time and feeling really intimidated. I didn't want to seem like I knew nothing, but I actually didn't know anything about it. So I had gotten my running shoes for years from a big box sports store and mostly picked what was cute, what was popular, what went with the clothes that I had. So if you're just starting out or have never gotten your shoes from a running store, the next podcast is for you. You can head over to wrinkledrunner.com to see what the website is like and search for the Wrinkled Runner on YouTube if you'd like. My Facebook page is wrinkledrunner.com, and all those places will have my links to Twitter and Instagram. You can check out the show notes for the links and information on anything that I've talked about. You can also send me an email at sherry@wrinkledrunner.com if you have any questions about running or about beginning running, or if you are interested in perhaps having me interview you for a future podcast episode. So have a great week, and I hope to see you on the run.